What is going on, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George and Goes reporting for duty here on a Friday. Excited to talk to you with our guest here, Brian Butler, who represents a lot of great fighters, UFC champions, Bellator champions, PFL champions, Invicta champions. The guy's done it well and for a long time. I love what he says here on the social media. I'm the one that didn't slither through the grass to get here. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing? You guys have a good Christmas?
Yeah, thank you. I'm in South America. I'm in Peru right now, taking care of our mom, Goes and
I saw that on socials. Everything going okay?
Yeah, she's recovering from a fractured hip. So, her being a senior, it's a lot slower than anyone else, but she's coming along. We're hoping in a couple of weeks she can stand and take a few steps.
Good. You look good, George.
Oh, thank you. I lost a few pounds. And yeah.
Goes not so much.
Zoom in on the camera a little bit or
something. Brian, I wanted to ask you before we get, asking about some of your roster, if someone's 10-0, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are from, pick a country, it doesn't matter, but they're 10-0, maybe 8 finishes, and they're exciting. And they come to you and go, I'd like for you to guide my career. What are your thoughts? What jumps out at you, Brian? Like, I know the sport has evolved in so many ways. Do you start with the UFC? Do you start with PFL? If you go to the UFC, is Dana White Contender Series the way to go? Or do you save them for tough? Let's just say there's rumors of that guy or gal's weight classes coming up. PFL Europe. Like, what really is the game plan now for a manager carving out a young fighter's career?
Well, if they're international, like you say, I think the first thing you got to kind of figure out is, what's their visa situation? Can they get in the country and fight here, or do we have to fight them internationally? If we have to fight them internationally, it's it is what it is. But obviously things can progress a little faster if they can get in the country and fight here. It also is a what do you call it? Saves a step for the UFC, so it might move them up the rung a little bit higher if they're showing all of the credentials, like finishes, like you say. Right now, obviously all the fighters, every fighter's dream is to be in the UFC. That's the top promotion in most young fighters' eyes. I mean, we do have a couple fighters that actually say we would want to go to, PFL or ONE or Bellator or stuff like that. So it's fighters' preference, but the majority of fighters, their dream is the UFC. So the only ways into the UFC right now, because the rosters are so bloated with the things that they're doing with Contender Series. Contender Series is always kind of filling things back up. It's basically short notice, unless you're like an outlier where you're, Sean or Mick, really want you, and it's a rare thing, like a Bo Nickel type of thing, or somebody that has just Olympic gold medals and stuff like that, and it's very rare to just go right into the UFC now. Yeah. Becoming a champ in one of the established regional shows like LFA, Cage Warriors, CFFC, things like that definitely helps move you up the rung. But again, even some of them have to go to Contender Series to get in, just because. And it's not that the UFC doesn't want them, it's just there's no room, so they have to create space in order to let people in, let people kind of like at a nightclub with the fire code type of thing.
Gotcha.
And if you have a good season of Contender Series, you're coming out of that with how many new signees, and then while it's great and everybody loves it, I in talking with like Sean and Nick, they're like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? We just got in like 50 new fighters. What are we going to do? So, yeah,
Are you? Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say all we can do is all I can do is be honest with them and tell them that our job is to try to keep them at the top of the radar, so that when the picks do come, we're going to do our best to get them there. Or if they need another fight or another finish or something like that, it's our job to try to guide them in that manner. I would warn any young fighter, if any management company or any manager would say to them, hey, you sign with me and I'm going to 100% guarantee you're going to be in the UFC in your next fight or within the next month. I mean, that's shady.
Have you, after all these years, I think it's been 2 decades now, you're in the sport as a manager. Do you feel like you've also become a scout? Here's what I mean. If you tell Mick or Sean, man, I got this guy, I got this gal, like, does your word carry weight? In other words, do you think you've even become a scout, or would you even want to be known as one because your younger roster, you identify certain talent, and when you have told them, it's paid off?
I mean, yeah, listen, yes and no, because Mick and Sean also both do their due diligence very thoroughly. So if I tell them a name, I have the credibility for them to actually look at them, and
Yeah.
then they're going to go in and research them, because like oftentimes I'll think, well, maybe Sean didn't look at this guy. I just said I just told him about it. But then no, I'll talk to Sean later on, and Sean will come back at me with like, well, what about this fight? This fight? So he will do his research, and same thing with Mick. So they're not gonna sign anyone. No, neither of them are gonna sign a fighter just based off of someone's word. They're gonna do their due diligence no matter what. The thing is that that I feel like we have, and a lot of the upper level management companies have, is that, hey, if we vouch for somebody heavily like that, they're going to do their due diligence on that person.
Yeah. Tell me if I make a big deal out of something, in that we talk about the it factor for fighters, how they can go from star to maybe superstar. And, Dana talks about it as well. I think it helps a lot just to speak English. Do I make too big of a deal about that? I also think that a creative nickname, a great walkout song, something that connects you with the fans when you come out and you make a splash, they remember you. What are your thoughts? Do you tell your fighters, hey, work on that English or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the foreign fighters are actively try to learn English.
Yeah.
And it definitely is going to help. It's going to help no matter what you do, coming to this, moving to this country, moving to whatever country you would go to, or wherever you're going to work. If you learn the language, it's going to help. As far as pinpointing what the it factor is, it's different with everybody, that's why they just call it the it factor. You don't really have
Right.
what is the it factor. It's that ambiguous thing out there that just makes everybody attracted to you. So I guess what we're what I like to do is get to know the athlete, so that we can figure out what their personal brand is to help bring out their it factor. And some people have it and some people just don't. Some people are just really tough, solid fighters, and they just don't put the energy there, or don't know how to pull it out, or sometimes it takes longer and it comes out in time, right? Sometimes people come right out of the gates and just explode onto the scene because they're just so loud that sometimes they explode on the scene, but they don't have the fighting to back it up, and they kind of flash in the pan. So yeah, it's kind of all over the place.
I want to ask you about your roster, impressive roster of champions, contenders, everything. Let's start with Jamahal Hill. We keep hearing about Pereira. He might fight at 300. I do the math. I know Jamahal Hill got hurt in July, Achilles. Can you update us on that? Like, usually that's a 9-month to 1-year injury, but I'm applying that usually to other sports. I don't hear about too many Achilles tears in our sport. I don't think he could make 300, but could he make International Fight Week, or what can you share about his update?
He's coming along well. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not I'm not in a position to speak as to how quickly he can come back, and I think that it's a little preemptive right now to put any dates on that. But his goal is to come back in and around that time. But I just don't have I just don't know. But I
you
do know
advise
that he's working hard. He's moved to Vegas, and he's going to his and he's staying there to kind of utilize the PI and the services there with the the outstanding team there that is helping him recover.
Probably a dumb question, probably a dumb follow up, but does he, in your opinion, walk straight into a title shot? And I ask only because would he want a tune up before the biggest fight of his career?
He goes right back to it. He gets a title shot right away.
Okay. I got a few more, but I've been hogging up the airtime here, so I'm gonna turn it over to Goes. Goes, what do you have for superstar agent manager Brian Butler from SuckerPunch Entertainment?
Well, since we're on the topic of fighters, because I do want to stray away from that a little bit as well. But since we're on that topic, Carla Esparza, she just seems so happy with the way life is now.
Awesome.
Will we ever see her back in the cage?
I think she has, she has a goal in her head to come back and fight again. And she's, just getting back into, training and stuff like that, slowly but surely. But, that she does. But I would just tell you that it's just so great to see Carla in the position that she's in right now. She's got a great family, a great husband, a great house, and just a great life. And it's just, I just couldn't be more proud of her and happy for her. So if she comes back, great. And if she doesn't, great as well, because she is completely content. And it's just, I take a lot of joy in watching how happy she is. And Carla has just been, I mean, I was talking about her the other day, how people say, I was with Derek Moneyberg, and he was talking about how he met Carla and how Carla never complained about, her flights were delayed. She couldn't do this appearance and this and that, but she just went along with it. She's never going to be the entitled one that feels like she deserves more because of who she is or what she's done. She's not going to complain about little things. She knows that, to just roll with things. And she's never changed. Carla is the exact same person that she was when she was fighting in XFC than she is now being a two-time UFC champ,
She has got a hit list, by the way, man. She's beaten a lot of really, really good fighters.
She is
I could see
under
play for sure. If
yeah,
she wanted
Carla, in my opinion, deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. She's the first strawweight champion of the entire of the UFC and of Invicta. And yeah, she's got a hit list, and she's also, she's a repeat champion.
right.
She's a pioneer for all women. There's a very strong argument that she deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and I hope that she gets that.
I could co-sign on that for sure. She's got quality wins. She's won titles, and she's won the UFC strawweight on 2 different occasions. That's great longevity to being at a high level. What I wanted to ask you though is, Marlon Vera gets a lot of love from the country of Ecuador. I think he had a Pepsi sponsorship. I'm told he's huge over there. And now we got that Morales kid who is from Ecuador but trains in Mexico, but he's undefeated. He's looking pretty sharp. Everyone forgets Carla's got Ecuador ties. Was she ever big in Ecuador, Brian, or did she just maybe miss out on any MMA explosion that might have happened, I guess, in that country?
Well, I think I think she's more. I don't know if she's not like directly from there, like Chico. You know what I mean? She's like,
yeah.
So I don't know if she has the ties that go back as deep as him, but she definitely has roots there.
Okay.
But I just think that her ties to it weren't as strong.
Gotcha.
Brian, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the landscape of MMA in 2023. Actually, more the landscape of combat sports. Outside of the UFC, we've seen what's been going on with PFL. We've seen these avenues of fighters going in boxing, making money, karate combat, bare knuckle. It seems like they're collecting pretty good paychecks. What was it like dealing with all of that in 2023? And as a management group, what do you guys foresee for 2024? Did they make a big enough splash, all these organizations outside the UFC, that strategies had to be rethunk and all? Like, can you maybe talk a little bit about that new landscape that's been created?
I mean, the landscape of MMA has been constantly evolving every single year that I've been in. Sucker Punch has been around, I think, 16 years now. So it's just evolving every day. And I think that the main players that are in this business just find a way to capitalize with that. Now, as far as the changes with, you know, PFL and Bellator merger, obviously that's a major movement in the landscape, and there's going to be a lot of fighters that are going to be affected by it, but that's still kind of unknown. We don't really know how it's shaking out as we speak. So let's just say, I think everybody's very hopeful that it's going to be a good thing. It is sad to see that, you know, I'm glad that Bellator is kind of sticking around. The brand is kind of sticking around, but it's sad to see that it's the schedule is kind of dwindling down on that. But hopefully the merger with PFL, you know, ramps it up and things go. We just don't know. But I am also extremely glad to see that a lot of the staff from Bellator was able to transition over to PFL, because they were just very, very good people all over there. You know, Mike Kogan, Mike Johnson, you know, slew of people. So I just hope to continue to see all of those people in the business, because we've all become friends as well as, you know, colleagues.
Brian, we've hit the 30-year mark here with the UFC, and a big deal was made about it. It's tremendous how far they've come. And I have to imagine kind of a little side project in all of that, little wish list that everybody had was Jens Pulver into the UFC, right? And that finally happened. So I guess what I want to ask you is
the Hall of Fame, do you mean? Or the UFC?
Yeah, sorry, into the Hall of Fame. So now that we're past 30 years, does Brian Butler have another kind of like side project? Is there something that you want to see that hasn't happened to this point that you think needs to happen here in the next couple of years?
A side project? Gosh, I never really considered Jen's being a side project. I just felt it was owed.
Yeah.
You know, Carla. I'd love to see Carla in the Hall of Fame if that's along those lines. As far as gosh, that's a good question. I haven't even put much thought into. I'd have to think about that and get back to you, man. I don't know. I would like to see Carla in the Hall of Fame.
You know, the UFC at one point teased fighters having some sort of a retirement or pension. Dana said it. I remember about 5 years ago, they were looking into it, didn't happen. You manage a lot of fighters who have now gone on and, you know, they've retired or whatever. Have you ever heard anything like that? Or is that something that I guess you'd like to maybe not spearhead, but just be a part of a committee, or I don't know, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be, obviously that'd be great for the athletes to have something like that in place, and insurance. You know, the UFC has already taken steps to give some levels of insurance, but it would be great that if the fighters could have, you know, complete coverage on everything, you know, all the way through the sport. But I've also talked to some insurance providers, and you know, I understand on their end the difficulties because of the intricacies that are involved with it. So, you know, I think it's something that eventually will shake out as the sport's grown. But I mean, if you look at the sport in 5-year chunks, as a 5-year chapter, you could, the way it's grown has just been astronomical. So, you know, I think we're just now starting to kind of scratch the surface of how big this sport is actually going to be.
I got some big names here to talk about, so I'll see if I can blast through them quickly. Paul Felder, he has teased, you know, at some point maybe coming out. He even got in the USADA pool, and I checked before USADA, you know, kind of went their way. He even got tested once in the fourth quarter. Do you think he's still just waiting for something that might sound good and then dip his toe, or do you think it's over? What do you think?
You never know with Paul, you know. I personally, I have a couple of views on it. For Paul, I think that he's done enough in this sport, and he's got a very good career going now that, you know, he doesn't need to take any more damage, you know. And let's face it, when Paul fights, whether he wins or loses, he's going to end up in the hospital. I've been in the hospital with him many times, you know, wins and losses. So part of me is it says, like, listen, man, you're making great money. You've got a great career as an ESPN commentator. Focus on that. And he's also doing acting. We've got him doing some acting. He's actually filming a movie right now, which actually looks incredible. I can't really speak too much on it, but the movie looks great and the script looks great. And I was on set with Paul before Christmas, and man, he's good. Paul's a very good actor. But there's also the side that Paul, you know, he sees some of these fighters getting their retirement fights and going out with the bang and getting the crowd behind him for that big send off. And I could see why he would want that. And I think he deserves it, you know. So if he wants to do that, then I would also fully support that, because I also know that when Paul takes on a training camp, he doesn't play around. He is in it to win it, and he does everything to make sure that he's at his peak. And Paul at his peak is still dangerous for everybody. You know, nobody wants to fight a guy like Paul. They're not gonna be like, oh yeah, let's like Paul, because you know you're both getting fucked up.
That's true. It's
You know,
true.
like you're not gonna step up and say, I want that guy. So if Paul wants to do it, I'm 100% behind it. But if Paul doesn't want to do it, I'm 100% behind that as well. You know,
Okay.
am I behind Paul if he wants to come back and just try to make a run? No, I think at that point logic needs to step in and say, man, you're doing great. You're providing great for your family. He's got a great family. I just wouldn't want to see him take the damage unnecessarily, you know?
I hear you. All right. Rose Namajunas, only 31, already has a Hall of Fame career, you know, resume. And recently attempted at flyweight. She took a loss there. When do you think we'll see her again? And in your opinion, will it be back at strawweight, or do you think she stays at flyweight?
She's gonna stay at flyweight, and it'll be you'll see her first half of this year.
Is it just because it's a new challenge? Because her having those 2 wins over the current strawweight champ, you would think that gets her. We talked about nightclubs, the front of the line. If you have that kind of juice, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, in her last fight, she popped her finger, you know, in the very first round, and was not able to really get her groove going till, you know, a little too late. It didn't deter her at all, you know, and she felt very confident that if she had all of her tools, that she could have won that fight. And you know, if Rose is confident and if Rose's mind is into it, I don't think there's really nobody's beating her, you know. So, yeah, and like I said, if Rose is on a mission and Rose wants to do something and she's motivated for it, that's a problem for everybody.
Johnny Eblen, what do you think happens here? They don't have a middleweight that I know of in PFL. So does he go to, you know, face off versus Impa Kasanganay, the last 205 champ, or do they just create a middleweight division around him? What have you heard? Because you're right, that dude's a badass. I love watching him fight.
I think Johnny is the best middleweight in the world, regardless of where he's fighting. He's going to be the champ. And yeah, you know, there's things in the works right now. Can't talk about it yet, but he's going to be fighting also, you know, first quarter of the year.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us if it'll be a middleweight or light heavyweight?
It'll be a middleweight.
Cool. All right. Raytheon Stott, same position, awesome bantamweight, and I love his personality. Like, he has a little bit of that it factor.
Very much.
He's worn gold before, but again, PFL doesn't have bantamweight.
He grew into his it factor, you know. Like he's another one. Like, we didn't realize what it was until he started grabbing the mic, and coming out with it. Because when he first came onto the scene, he wasn't really doing that. I mean, he was doing that off camera and off mic. Right. Everybody knew that he was a hilarious guy, but you know, once he started to get his groove and get comfortable on camera and on the mic, really started to blossom. So, you know, not as what's next for him. You know, again, I think Rafael is one of the very best in the world as well, and there's no immediate news now, but we should be seeing him again, you know, very soon.
Okay, Sean Brady, would he be a good alternate for these title fights that are coming up?
I don't work with Sean Brady anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not know that.
That's all right.
I checked the SuckerPunch and I thought I saw his name there. All right, we'll skip him. Angela Hill. I feel like her and Jessica Andrade are like Arlovsky and Miller in terms of the amount of fights they've had, the longevity that they've had. What do you want for her? She's 38 now. Angela
wants to fight until she's like 90. Okay, she wants to fight every week.
Mhm.
But the crazy part about Angela is she's still getting better. Like she's honestly, her last fight was one of her better performances that I've ever seen out of her, and she's still progressively getting better. Uh,
The one
so
in
I just,
Brazil, right? Yeah, I
yeah,
remember
yeah,
that.
I just don't think she has not peaked yet. Like she's still peaking, you know. So she's older, but man, that girl's good, and she's fighting, and she's developing. She's still developing. So she wants to fight. Honestly, she was in a group text with Mick Maynard and myself yesterday, just giving Mick shit, like, where's my fight? Where's my fight?
Yeah.
And so,
Okay. So she's still no plans on stopping. All right. God bless her.
not yet. No.
She stays injury free and she's always answering the phone, so that's good. I want to piggyback on what Goes said. Josh Copeland, are you working with him still?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Josh Copeland, Ben Rothwell told us that dude's a badass, man. He really is a good fighter. He's 2-1, I believe, at
Yep.
BKFC. He says he's
Yeah.
tailor-made for BKFC. Of course, he went 18-7 in MMA, so he was no slouch there. What I wanted to ask you was, what do you think, man? Do heavyweights, is that a good landing spot for heavyweights at bare knuckle? From what you can tell, would you guide other heavyweights in that direction, or what are your thoughts?
It just depends, bare knuckle is definitely a different animal. Some people are cut out for it, more than others. Josh, I think fits in great over there because he's just such a durable, dense, heavy, powerful guy. He's like a diesel engine. Like that guy is definitely built for it. And is everybody built for it? I don't know, but BKFC is a great option for fighters that want to get in there and make good money.
Yeah.
Also, Gamebred MMA with Dean Toole and Jorge is also a good option that is coming up. So I'm excited that there are these opportunities for fighters, to do and explore other avenues in this sport that actually pay decently.
You and I chatted about something yesterday, but I give you my word, I was going to ask you this anyway. So I don't want you to think that based off what you and I spoke about yesterday, I'm asking you this. Keith Lee, that guy is blowing up. And I just wanted to ask you, like, what's it like guiding his career, I guess?
Oh, I'm not. He's doing all that now. His social media and food critic. That's his wheelhouse, man. I'm watching him in all, like just like everybody else. It's incredible to see the actual impact that he had. Did you see the thing that he did for the Korean barbecue family in Vegas?
Yeah, that big line that wrapped
That big
around,
line because I guess the
5 hour
father of the
wait.
owner just recently passed away, and he wanted everybody to show up and show love. And man, that is he I've never seen a social media star with more influence. And when I say influence, I don't mean followers. I mean like influence is actually making somebody do something, right?
Right.
Um, and he does it everywhere he goes, and it's incredible to see. And really happy for him and proud of him for the way he's carrying himself and the work that he's doing. This is really changing. He's really changing lives.
Mm-hmm. Are you guys still working together, or is he just kind of doing that on his own?
Yeah, I mean, we talk, but he's the social media stuff that he's doing is he's kind of doing that on his own. And but we just talked the other day actually, because we're talking about there was potential for him to do a Super Bowl, something for the Super Bowl, and it's like you're busy when you don't have time for the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
I was actually eating at a restaurant about a month ago, and I look up and there was a giant poster with him like this, and it just says Keith Lee approved.
Oh, nice.
It's crazy. I remember when he started his TikTok during COVID, and at some point I got to go back to my text messages with him, because I remember watching him post things, and it was like I think he wasn't even doing food reviews at the time. I think he was cooking stuff for his family, and like, oh, this is the sauce I used, and this is the way I prepped it. I bought these plates at Amazon. He was just doing stuff like that. But the way his camera presence, number one, and the way he edited, because he does all the edits himself. The way he cuts into his face and cuts out, and all that stuff. That's all him. all of that is so cleverly produced, you know, by him along with his camera presence. I told him right away, I was like, dude, I was like, just do not stop doing this. I was like, you can, whatever you're posting, I'm watching from start to finish, regardless of what you're talking about. And it's just because of the way that you are presenting yourself on camera. I was like, don't stop doing this. I was like, you got something here. You're doing very, so I got to go back and find that text message, because this was before Keith Lee was Keith Lee. This was still when Keith Lee was Bellator fighter Keith Lee, you know, and he didn't really have any followers on TikTok. And it's just awesome to see that he's just blown up the way that he has.
He's obviously done fighting, right?
You know, no, we'll see. You know, he's busy and happy doing what he's doing now. If he was to call me and say he wanted to fight, sky's the limit. You know, I feel
Right.
that would be as big as any Jake Paul fight out there if he came back and fought. You know, because I think he's got a fan base that is actually more mainstream. You know,
Is he a free agent, or is he still tied to Bellator now? PFL.
No, he's a free agent.
Ooh, okay, yeah. So he could probably command if he's got an audience. I mean, what people do based off of his recommendations that come from the heart are pure, you know, genuine and everything. That really.
But again, does you know, not to sound like, I guess I'm not, but I mean, does he need to? Like, I'm completely happy and proud of him not fighting. He's providing for his family. He's making an incredible living.
Right.
Why? You know, unless he just has which he does have the fighter spirit inside him still, and he just wants to compete, then I'm all for it. But definitely don't need to do it for a paycheck. You know, he doesn't need it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, we're proud of him, man. Like you said, it all started with him just cooking for the family, and now what he's doing, going all over the country, changing lives, Brian Butler, changing lives, saving restaurants, saving small businesses, or, you know, re-energizing those families that kind of maybe, you know, they're not necessarily going bankrupt, but they're not killing it. And then all of a sudden they just get this rejuvenation because he's come through. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. No, it really is. I've never seen anything like it. And see him on Good Morning America and stuff like that. Like, yeah, the type of the type of people that are reaching out trying to get him to do collaborations and things like that it doesn't get any bigger.
Mm-hmm. Here's my last one. Do you still work with Jorina Bars?
No.
Oh,
it's been a couple years on that one.
I got you.
It was very difficult. I mean, it was very difficult to get her fights, you know. You know, her size, and just sticking strictly to kickboxing, it was just it was very difficult. And yeah.
Here's why I asked, because you've seen Israel come over from kickboxing and become a world champ, and now Pajeda, and she's only 35, and she's a badass striker. And I just wondered if, you know, maybe she saw that and thought, geez, I might still have a run in me or whatever. Because PFL was doing lightweight for a while, now featherweight, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know.
I saw think she
at the end of 2023. So
I think she just was passionate about kickboxing, and she never had any motivation to, you know, go and learn the ground game. But, you know, it's been a couple of years since I've been working with her, so maybe her mind has changed. I don't know. It'd be great. It'd be awesome to see her do it. You know, there's no hard feelings, but kickboxing is a little more difficult to make a living at.
Is there anything you want to say on the way out? Sometimes us as media, we take hits from fans, haters, trolls, whatever. I know managers do the same. Is there anything, you know, that maybe that goes on behind the scenes that fans don't know about that you guys do, or that just maybe might seem unfair the way you guys might get pegged? I guess I don't know. I mean, not to say that I really hear anything bad about you, because I don't think I've ever heard a bad word about you.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do try to keep, you know, out of the swamp, because it is a swamp when it gets down to things. I mean, I think, you know, a lot of times, you know, I always try to put myself in the shoes of the fighter to try to understand where their mindset is, but I also am never going to be the one that says something to a fighter purely to calm them down if it's not true. You know what I mean? Or I'm not going to be a yes man, or I'm not going to try to promise something that I know, even if there's an 80% chance that it can happen, I'm not going to say, yeah, it's going to happen. I'm going to let them know, listen, there's a chance that it won't, because I never want to be caught in a situation where I've promised something and didn't deliver. I think that oftentimes, managers, not just me, it's happened to me, and I'm sure it's happened to other managers, is that, fighters get in this lull in their career, or something bad happens in their career, and they got to blame somebody. So, oftentimes they'll blame management because it feels like, oh, I don't want to blame my coach because I got to work with him every day, and this and that. So sometimes I think we get an unfair rap for that. I feel like many times I've gotten an unfair rap based off of the fact that I've just stayed honest with my communication to them, and I've never, you're never going to see a situation where a fighter said that I said something and didn't do it. The only thing you're going to see is where something that they wanted might not have happened, and it wasn't because I told them it was gonna and it didn't. It was because it just didn't. And there's a litany of reasons why that probably happened, and I don't have a specific example to tell you, but yeah, that's kind of the shitty part about this business. It sometimes it eats your soul when you have a fighter that you feel you've built a relationship with, and things don't go exactly the fighter's way, and blames goes somewhere, and we all, I don't know. That's it. Does it make sense?
You're on mute, George.
I was just saying, you've done it the right way. I'm sure you got tons of memories. The most recent one, the Hall of Fame, you got to say the speech. That was wonderful. All those times I've seen you in the octagon with the world champions. So congrats, man. We are fans of Sucker Punch and yourself, and you really conducted yourself as a true pro. So thank you as always for your time here on MMA Junkie Radio.
Thank you guys. You guys are OGs in this game. And like I said, anytime you need anything from me, I'm going to do my best to make it happen for you guys. I love you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Love you too,
Likewise.
buddy. All right. Thank you. Hope you had a nice holiday season. We'll hope to run into you a lot in 2024.
Yep. All right. See you guys.